Influence, making big money. Big money means big taxes. Are you ready? Here are 3 tips to make sure you don't end up in big trouble. I want your money to be big, but I do not want your taxes to be big. Influence, you have the opportunity to make a lot of money. There's so many opportunities on the table, but this also comes with big responsibility and tax filings. To much is given, much is required. So who is an influencer? And what does that really mean? Well, we know an influencer is usually somebody on social media who has built a big following and has the power to affect the buying decisions of others because of their knowledge, position, relationships, and authority. Celebrities, thought leaders, social media personalities are the most common influencers. And guess what? IRS is checking you out. And while anyone can be an influencer, not everyone has the same influence. And nobody is going to stop IRS from knocking on your door if you don't understand these 3 tips that I am going to give you to understand the tax obligations as an influencer. An influencer, you have a lot of freedom. You can kind of set your own schedule. You can do business when you want to. But when it comes to the IRS, you're not running anything. I am here to let you know. The first tip that you really need to understand is you have to understand your tax filing requirements. This is a big deal. Some of you may still be working W-2 jobs, thinking that all you have to do come tax time is file your 1040. But if you are an influencer, you need to understand that you are now self-employed. That's correct, self-employed. You may be thinking to yourself, Carla, I don't have a business. You do have a business. You are self-employed. If you get any income outside of your W-2 income, you are self-employed. So here are your tax filing requirements. You have to file with your 1040 a business tax return. So you are going to be including a Schedule C in with your income tax return. If you set up an entity, then no, you need to file the entity tax return that is probably going to flow through to your individual tax return. You have to file your tax returns by April 15th to include your influencer money and your W-2 money. If you also are going to be profitable, you also need to make sure that you are filing estimated taxes. And you may be thinking to yourself, Carla, what the heck is estimated taxes? Well, I want to explain that to you. When you work for an employer, the employer gives you a W-2 and they withhold out of your paycheck. They withhold federal income tax, state income tax, all of that money behind the scenes gets sent to the government and you don't have to think twice. Well, when you are self-employed, you actually have to calculate your self-employment tax and your income tax on your influencer money. And you have to pay that to the IRS 4 times a year. And there are dates to pay it. January 15th, April 15th, June 15th, and 9/15 of every single year. You got to make those quarterly estimated tax payments. The first year that you don't do that, you're going to get a big surprise. And the big surprise is the self-employment tax, the income tax, and the penalty, and the nasty gram from IRS. So make sure that you understand your tax filing requirements. Now, the second thing I need you to understand is your payment requirements. What is all the tax that you need to pay? That's really important. The first tax, which most of us know, we got to pay our income taxes. And we all are used to paying our income taxes. But remember, if you are an influencer and you have W-2 income, your business income from your influencer money is going to layer on top of your W-2 income, and it's going to throw you in a higher tax bracket. So you have to pay your income taxes, federal and state. If you're not in a taxable state, you may not have income tax at the state level. For example, Nevada, for example, Tennessee, there's no state income tax. But be very careful, because if you are in an entity, maybe the state doesn't have any individual income tax, but there may be business tax that you have to pay, like franchise tax, like the state of Texas, for example. So it's very important to understand your tax obligations. On top of that becomes the self-employment tax. Also remember that if you have people helping you, any employees, you are responsible for making sure you withhold their state and federal income tax, their Social Security and Medicare tax, and that you remit that over to the government as well, because if not, you're going to receive penalties and assessments and nasty grants. And as much as I like getting fan mail, I don't like getting mail from the IRS. Anytime a letter comes with IRS name on it, I'm not liking it. I want them to take me off their mailing list. That's not one of the lists that you want to be on. As much as you want to be an influencer, you don't want to be on their list. You don't want them coming after you. So you have to make certain you understand your tax obligations. And if you are working with others and you're 1099ing those individuals because they're doing work for you on the side, make certain that you give them a 1099 and make certain you give it to them by January 31st. And that you submit those 1099 forms to IRS by February 28th of every single year. That is a requirement that you have to meet. It's really important. You may get a little slap on the wrist the first time, but the second time you do it, IRS will slap you with accuracy-related penalties. And those penalties are pretty high. So you want to avoid having to pay more money because of ignorance. So ignorance does not go over with IRS. IRS don't care that you're an influencer. IRS doesn't care that these companies are willing to pay you the big bucks. To IRS, you're average. You're the same individual as everybody else, and you gotta follow the same rules. So you don't get to get away with anyway telling IRS, do you know how many followers I have? It's not gonna work with IRS. So make sure that you are doing the right thing. The third thing that you have to be conscientious of is understanding your tax deductions. And this is where things get a little bit muddled for influencers. And so let me tell you what you got to be aware of. Influencers, you're out there buying nice clothes, you're getting your hair done, you're doing all of those things to make yourself more influential, right? Making yourself be a person that people want to follow. You may be hopping on jets and thinking that's a tax deduction. You may be buying Rolexes and thinking that's a tax deduction. And it might be, but here's the thing, and I need you to listen. If you use that jet, that Rolex, your nice fly hair, whatever it is that you're doing, you need to make certain that you're keeping records of the videos. That's right, records of the videos where you use that. I know you're like, wait, what? Hold on. Let me tell you again. The video that you use that in, you need to make sure you document it and make sure you catalog it. That is very important because you can get all of those tax deductions. You can deduct the clothes, you can deduct the jets, you can deduct the hairdos, the makeup artists, the cars, the watches, all of it, as long as you understand that you got to make certain that you're keeping track of why that expense made you make income, why that expense linked you to the pursuit of income. That is the key. And that is something that you absolutely have to understand, because many of you are coming to me and being like, Carla, but I bought it for this. Where did you use it? Oh, I haven't used it yet. Okay, well, guess what? We can't deduct it yet. It's not a tax deduction because it hasn't helped you make money. Tax deductions are only good if they help you make money. And the reason why, people, is because IRS is the debt collector for the government. They are looking to get revenue, and revenue is in the form of taxes. Therefore, their job is to make sure that you don't get your tax deductions. So understanding how to get your tax deductions is one of the things that you need to make sure you get. You get your tax deductions when you are able to prove that this deduction got you to the pursuit of income. That is so important. So let me recap to make sure that you guys don't miss anything, because I don't want any excuses. Here are the 3 tips in summary. Tip number 1, you have to understand your tax filing requirements when you need to file. You have to understand your tax obligations when you need to pay and how much you need to pay. Number 3, you have to understand what your tax deductions are and when to take them. And now that you know better, you got to start to do better, because you heard it from America's tax advisor. So you have no excuse. You are now educated. And speaking of educated, I want you to stay educated. That's why I want you to like, comment, and subscribe so America's tax advisor can educate you on all things tax.